explain what it is, or?
The Methuselah Foundation?
Yeah.
Oh no, I think we're fine. People will be
Okay, I
able to.
just didn't know how what the familiarity levels were, but
Very familiar.
they're
I think most of the viewers tonight will be very familiar with Methuselah.
yeah they fund longevity research and advocacy efforts and scientific conferences and things like that, and so I think that's a really important thing to be doing. And the thing that attracted me to them way back in the beginning was the fact that they were actually doing things in the lab already. I mean, it was affiliated with what was just the M Prize, the
Yep.
Methuselah Mouse Prize, and that impressed the heck out of me. I was thinking that was the thing that made me think this is actually probably legitimate, because it wasn't just a bunch of people speculating. It was people saying we have a plan.
And now
We already
they're
have some.
now they're
We
in the
want to.
lab. Yeah.
Yes, and that is the coolest thing. I mean, one of the first things I did at one point was they were looking for dirt samples so they could study the enzymes that break down the compounds that build up.
For lysosense, for the
Yes.
lysosense threat. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I actually found that on one of the forums
Yeah,
on Emmons.
yeah,
Yeah.
and many Emmons members, I wouldn't doubt many viewers tonight probably contributed dirt samples as well.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't find anything in mine, but the fact they got stuff from all over the world and they found stuff in some of the samples, that was the important part. So that was, and that sort of was a point in time when I was like, well, I may not, because before I was always thinking all I can do really is watch because I'm not a biologist. But then I'm thinking, well, there's ways everybody can help, and what I do now is mostly behind the scenes stuff, which is how I like it. I really don't like, I don't like a lot of constant attention. Honestly, even though I have a blog, it's not really about that. It's more about wanting to communicate about certain subjects.
It's more about the ideas.
Yeah, it's about the ideas. It's not about, look how cool I am. It's about, okay, this is a cool idea, and this is my perspective on it, and I think these things are important, and these are interesting, so I want to talk about them.
Well, whether you like it or not, I'm going to say you're cool. On my cool meter, you rank very high, so I'll just...
Oh, well, I could send that back in time to 6th grade and tell, like, that was a little different. But yeah, so let's see, where was I? But anyway, about what the stuff I do now is one of those things where one thing I'm really kind of good at is stuff that everybody else hates to do, which is, mining through large amounts of data and putting it in spreadsheets and sorting it.
Ah.
Basically kind of more repetitive stuff.
Sure.
And kind of a lot of detail work. And so a lot of what I do is I sort information from donors who have donated to the Methuselah Foundation and find out who has donated either $100 or more, or donated to the autograph book promotion, or has joined the 300, which is a group of people who, well, they're going to have 300 that agree to contribute a certain amount.
I think it's up to 200 now, isn't it? 200?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's been growing like crazy lately too. It's been really cool to see. It's a lot of new 300 members. I'm not a 300 member just because I have, this is kind of superstitious, I guess, but I feel like I get laid off or something the moment I join. So I'm trying to work on figuring out more stability, I guess. Although it's pretty stable, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Long, large commitments aren't for everybody right now. But anyway, what I do is Aubrey will sign the books, and I will put them in envelopes and mail them out to people. So not glamorous at all, but it needs to be done, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, well, great. We have another question from the audience tonight about a couple of the issues that have been going on in some of these organization circles. The WTA, the Singularity Institute, the Immortality Institute, the Methuselah Foundation even, have all been considering name changes to appeal to more, or that's been, whether it's been a public discussion, whether it's being voted on currently, or whether it's just in the backroom discussions. Many of these organizations are considering name changes, and I just wanted to get your opinion on that. The supposed purpose of this is to appeal a little bit more to a mainstream audience. And some people, the argument goes, hey, the names are perhaps a little forward-thinking or a little radical for a reason, because the issues are very future-driven. But other people say, no, we can't have a more extreme name because we're just going to be labeled as fringe organizations. What do you think about these name change issues?
Well, I think it goes far beyond names. I think that I'm not really a marketing type person at all, but I do think it makes sense to make sure that the name of whatever you are is not ridiculous or say demeaning or something, which none of these are right now. But I mean, they should make sense, and they should also communicate something. But the other side of the coin is that if you don't have clear goals and you don't know what you're doing or what your goals are, then no matter what you call it, you're still going to get recognized for what you actually are. And the other thing is you have to be very careful of of coming across as overly kind of markety. As in, if you have something that's actually quacky or fringy, then no matter what you do, I mean, you know, if you think about something like Amway or something, they've tried to come up with various offshoots so people won't associate them with crazy pyramid schemes, but everybody does anyway. You know, so I'm not comparing any of these organizations that you enlisted to that, but I'm just saying that, you know, I'm just saying that, you know, if you changing a name doesn't necessarily change the philosophy of something.
Right.
That's basically the point. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, and that's what I've heard several other arguments as well, as if each of these organizations, if they're focusing, they'll be regarded as to what they focus on, what their accomplishments are.
Exactly. And one thing about me is I'm very concrete-minded. I'm a very concrete thinker. I like things to be practical and real, and sometimes people seem to take that the wrong way. As in, like, it's not, for me, for instance, like the Medusa Foundation, one of the reasons I work with them is because they're actually doing something that I can see in the real world and relate to. It's not just kind of this airy-fairy speculation about 2012 and, you know, the crystal spires of who knows what.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's very down to earth. You know, it's like, okay, we're going to fund this research for this lab, and we're going to try to make these things happen by adjusting what these cells are doing and what's being expressed by these enzymes. You know, things like that. It's all stuff that I can picture.
Concrete and easier. Right.
As opposed to, like, for instance, when I first found out about I'll go into the transhumanism thing now. When I first found out about it, I just thought it was a, you know, convenient shorthand way of saying things like, hi, I'm interested in robots, cryonics, and longevity, and I'm interested in talking to others who are interested in the same thing.
Right.
So that's what I thought, but it turned out it was much more than that. There's like this whole big kind of political, social mess where people are constantly arguing about what they are, what they aren't, what do they stand for, what do they not stand for. Just like, after a while, that just started grate on me and get really irritating and become a time suck and just enough. I just want to look at what I'm individually interested in.
Sure.
And only affiliate with organizations where I can see what they're doing and I know they don't undermine any of my principles, and it's apparent that they don't. So, you know, it's like, for instance, with the transhumanism thing, I found that it was kind of like, while there were some fairly forward-thinking people who would consider themselves organized transhumanists, I guess, there were some that were very kind of pedestrian in their thinking and didn't seem to realize it. Is that, well, of course we should make sure that people know we don't have any autistic people in the future because they're obviously all suffering, and it's like there's no way to get into that. And then I felt like I was being excluded from the future in a lot of ways.
Right, I hear you there.
And then sometimes people would try to placate me by saying, oh, well, you know, well, you're okay. We're okay with your brain. But, you know, if they had seen me when I was, you know, 10 or 12 years old, they might have just said, oh, my gosh, get her to the brain rearranger machine right away. But, you know, instead of giving me a chance to do because even though I was less happy then in a lot of ways and had a lot more struggles, I didn't have any desire to basically stick my brain in a blender so somebody could make a more preferable child out of the raw materials. And I would have found that kind of almost like a death sentence in a way, even though I had struggles.
Sure.
So yeah, and so I felt like there was not enough addressing of those issues within the so-called transhumanist community.
Sure.
That's one of the reasons why I don't call myself that word anymore, because I feel like it doesn't want me.
And you generally try to avoid labels, like you said, more about
I do.
the
Actually,
ideas.
I wrote a big thing about that. I only use labels insofar as I think they communicate something. Like, for instance, I'll call myself, you know, my name, or, you know, I'll say I'm a California resident. I'll say that, you know, I have, you know, I'll say something like autistic spectrum because that describes a lot of my sort of different ways of perceiving the world.
Yes.
But, you know, when it comes to things with other isms, you know, that have to do with ideologies, I tend to find that I always get myself in trouble if I claim to associate with one, because it just adds to the number of assumptions people make about me before actually reading or hearing what I have to say.
Okay.
And it's no insult on anybody. I understand why some people need that stuff, and I don't want to get a lot of angry mail from
don't worry
anybody
about
saying,
it.
like, well, why are you saying, not all of us are like this? And it's like, yes, I know you're not all, but there's not. It's like, I don't need that, you know, I don't need that kind of culture in order to do what I need to do. And it's fine for people who are into that sort of thing, and I wish them luck, but it's just not for me.
Sure.
So I just stick specifically to longevity and the kind of social justice issues I'm interested in.